Are you feeling trapped by debt, wondering if true financial freedom is even possible? Imagine waking up without the constant weight of bills and worries, knowing you're not just surviving, but thriving. In today's episode, we're diving into From Debt to Freedom, the Jim Rohn system that works. Inspired by the timeless wisdom of Jim Rohn, we're going beyond just numbers and spreadsheets. Rohn famously said, "For things to change, you have to change," and that's exactly where we'll start. Together, we'll uncover why so many people stay stuck in debt, how your mindset shapes financial outcomes, and most importantly, the practical steps you can take to break the cycle. If you're ready to change your thinking, your habits, and your financial future, this episode is your first step toward real, lasting freedom. Let's get started. Let's talk about something a lot of people wish they could ignore: debt. If you've ever felt overwhelmed by it, worried, stressed, even ashamed, you're definitely not alone. The truth is, debt touches so many of us, in one form or another. Sometimes it starts small, a credit card to cover an emergency, or a student loan that seemed manageable at first. Other times, it creeps up quietly, building over years of little decisions. Suddenly, you look at the numbers and wonder, how did I get here? That feeling of being stuck is heavy. It can keep you up at night, make you dread checking your bank account, or leave you anxious every time the phone rings. On the outside, maybe everything looks fine. But inside, it feels like there's this weight you're forced to carry around, day in and day out. What's hard is that debt isn't just about money. It's about emotions of fear, guilt, even anger at yourself. Sometimes it's about feeling embarrassed to talk about it, even with close friends or family. There's this pressure to keep up, to look successful, to have things together. We see people on social media posting their vacations, their new cars, their picture-perfect lives. And it's so easy to compare ourselves, to wonder if we're somehow behind. But the reality is, millions of people are struggling with debt. It's just that nobody's talking about it. It can feel isolating, like you're the only one who can't seem to manage. That's not true. Not even close. So let's break the silence, right here. Let's be honest about what living with debt really feels like. Maybe you wake up thinking about your payments before your feet hit the floor. Maybe you've put off going to the doctor, skipped an outing with friends, or said no to something you wanted, all because of money. Maybe you feel stuck in a job you don't love, just to keep up with bills. Or maybe you worry about how debt might affect your family, your future, your dreams. It's exhausting. Debt impacts your choices, your mood, even your relationships. It can make you feel like you have no options. You might have tried to get ahead before, maybe you set a goal, made a budget, even paid down a card or two. But then life happens. The car breaks down, a medical bill arrives, or your hours get cut at work. Suddenly, it feels like you're back at square one. If that sounds familiar, know this: it's not because you're lazy, or irresponsible, or bad at managing money. There are so many reasons people end up in debt, many of them outside your control. The world we live in almost seems designed for it. Credit is easy to get. Interest rates are tricky. And most of us were never taught how to really manage finances. It's not just about spending less. It's about navigating a system that's complicated, overwhelming, and sometimes feels stacked against you. But here's something important: debt does not define you. It's a situation, not your identity. And it's a situation you can change. You might not believe that right now. Maybe you've tried before and it didn't work. Maybe you're tired, discouraged, and just want a break from thinking about it. That makes sense. But even in the toughest moments, change is possible. You can get free, no matter how deep the hole feels right now. It doesn't matter if you have a little debt or a mountain of it. You're not alone in feeling stuck. And you're not alone in wanting things to change. What's powerful is that real change starts the moment you decide to face the truth. Not to judge yourself, but to get clear, to say, this is where I am, and I'm willing to do something about it. It's not about willpower or perfection. It's not about feeling bad for past choices. It's about taking small steps, one at a time. It's about understanding how you got here, not for blame, but for insight. Because when you understand the patterns, the emotions, and the habits that brought you here, you can start to make different choices. You can start to shift the way you think and feel about money. You can create a new future for yourself, one small change at a time. And I want to reassure you, anyone can do this. No matter your background, your age, or your income. There are people who've paid off tens of thousands in debt. People who started with nothing and built real financial freedom. They weren't superheroes, and they didn't always get it right the first time. But they started with the decision that something had to change. Maybe you're ready for that decision right now. Or maybe you're just ready to imagine that real change could be possible for you, too. That's a good place to start. Sometimes, the hardest part is just facing your situation honestly. Opening that bill. Looking at the total. Telling someone you trust, hey, I'm struggling. But that's also where power comes from. Debt can feel like it's controlling your life. But the moment you face it head on, even just by listening to this podcast, you start to take back control. You start to see you have options. You start to believe, even just a little bit, that things could be different. Let's acknowledge something else, too. The emotions around debt are real. It's okay to feel afraid, overwhelmed, or frustrated. You don't have to push those feelings away or pretend they're not there. But you also don't have to let them run the show. You can feel your feelings, and then start to make choices anyway. Even if they're tiny choices at first. And that's how change actually happens. One step at a time. Debt can make life feel smaller. It can shrink your choices, your confidence, your joy. But freedom is possible. It starts with a shift, not just in your bank account, but in your mind and your heart. You're capable of more than you think. And you're not the only one facing this challenge. It's easy to believe that everyone else has it figured out. That you're the only one who feels behind. But most people are carrying some kind of financial burden. It's just that nobody shares the messy parts. So if you're listening right now, feeling overwhelmed, discouraged, or even hopeless, please know that you're in the right place. You don't have to walk this road alone. There's no shame in wanting help, or in starting again. In fact, that's the bravest thing you can do. You're already showing courage by wanting things to change, by reaching for something different. If you take away just one thing from this conversation, let it be this: debt is a challenge, not a life sentence. No matter where you're starting from, you can move forward. It doesn't have to happen all at once. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to take the first step. And as you keep listening, you'll begin to learn how. You'll see that the path to freedom isn't just about numbers, it's about mindset. It's about understanding yourself, your habits, and your beliefs. It's about building a new relationship with money, one that empowers you instead of holding you back. But before we get into the how, let's just take a breath. Let's acknowledge how hard this is, and how much strength it takes to face it. It's okay if you feel scared. It's okay if you don't have all the answers. What matters is that you're here. And you're willing to start. You might be surprised how much things can change, even in a short time, when you begin to look at debt differently. When you stop seeing it as a personal failure, and start seeing it as a problem you can solve. A challenge you can learn from. So as we move forward, keep this in mind: debt is not your destiny. You're not alone, and you're not powerless. Real change is possible, no matter what you've been through. You have strength you haven't even tapped into yet. And with the right mindset and some practical steps, you can begin to turn things around. We're going to walk this road together. One step at a time, one choice at a time. You're not broken. You're not beyond help. You're ready for something new. And believe it or not, the fact that you care enough to show up, enough to listen, enough to hope, is already the beginning of your transformation. So let's keep going. Let's start to uncover what's really holding us back, and how to break free. Change is possible. And you are more than your debt. Let's talk about something Jim Rohn considered the real starting line for any kind of transformation: your mindset. If you've ever felt trapped by debt, or stuck in the same financial rut year after year, you know how exhausting it can feel. It's easy to think the problem is just the numbers, how much you owe, or what's coming in versus going out. But Jim Rohn believed, and taught over and over, that real change actually starts on the inside. I want you to really let that sink in for a moment. It's not just about budgets or bills. It's about how you see yourself, and what you believe is possible for you. Jim used to say, for things to change, you have to change. And this wasn't about blaming yourself or beating yourself up. It's about realizing that everything you want, everything you're struggling for, begins with your thinking, your attitudes about money, work, even what you deserve. Let's be honest. Most of us didn't grow up in families where money was talked about in a positive, empowering way. Maybe you heard things like, money doesn't grow on trees, or, we can't afford that. Maybe you came to believe that wealth was for other people, or that getting out of debt just wasn't in the cards for you. Jim Rohn called these philosophies the beliefs we carry about life that quietly shape every decision we make. And unless we stop and look at them, we just keep repeating the same patterns. Here's the thing: your current financial life is actually a reflection of your past philosophies. It's not the economy, or your boss, or even your bills that are holding you back. It's the story you tell yourself about what's possible. You might be nodding along right now, thinking, but I really am struggling. And I get that. I've been there myself. But let me ask you this: what if you could change the story? What if you could start to believe that freedom from debt is actually possible, even for you? Jim said, you cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. It's such a powerful idea, because it means that you don't have to fix everything today. You just have to be willing to take a new first step with a new mindset. Let's dig into what that looks like. First, notice your self-talk. What do you say to yourself about money? Is it, I'll never get ahead, or, no matter what I do, I just can't save? These beliefs aren't harmless, they become self-fulfilling prophecies. Jim would often encourage people to write down what they believe about money. Grab a notepad and just scribble out whatever comes up for you, good and bad. Be honest. Are these beliefs helping you or holding you back? Here's why this matters. If you keep thinking the way you've always thought, you'll keep getting the same results. To create a new financial reality, you need to create new beliefs, new philosophies. For Jim, it always started with taking personal responsibility, not in a harsh way, but in an empowering one. He'd say, don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. That doesn't mean you have to be perfect. But it does mean you have to believe that you're capable of change. So much of the struggle with debt comes from feeling powerless or overwhelmed. That's why Jim focused so much on mindset, because when you believe you can change, you start to look for solutions instead of just problems. Think about this, every wealthy person you know, every person who's successfully gotten out of debt, started with the belief that change was possible. That's really the foundation. Let's talk about a practical example. Have you ever noticed how two people can have the same income, but end up in totally different financial places? One might have savings, the other might be deep in debt. The difference isn't just in the numbers, it's in how they think about money, how they make choices, and what they believe about what's possible for them. Jim Rohn used to say that all wealth starts with philosophy, which leads to attitude, which leads to activity, which leads to results. So, if you want different results, more money left at the end of the month, less debt, more breathing room, you start with your philosophy. Try this, shift your thinking from I can't to how can I. Instead of, I'll never get out of debt, try, what are 3 small steps I could take this week to move forward? That simple shift opens up new possibilities. Another key mindset shift is seeing yourself as worthy of financial freedom, worthy of stability, worthy of a life where money supports you instead of stressing you out. If you've always felt that money is a struggle, or that you're destined to be bad with money, that belief will keep showing up in your behavior. What if you started telling yourself a new story? What if your new belief became, I am learning to manage my money wisely. I am becoming a person who respects my finances. It might feel awkward or even untrue at first, but remember, your beliefs are like clothes. You try them on, and over time, they start to fit. Jim also taught the importance of associating with the right people. If you surround yourself with folks who are always complaining about being broke, or who don't believe in growth, that mindset seeps into you too. So, look for examples of people who have transformed their financial lives. Read their stories. Listen to their advice. Fill your world, even just a little bit, with the voices of people who believe change is possible. Another tool Jim loved was goal setting, but not just any goals. He taught that goals should inspire you, not scare you. Take a few moments to imagine, what would your life look like without the weight of debt? What would it feel like to know you have a cushion in the bank, that you can make choices from a place of freedom instead of fear? Hold on to that vision. Write it down. Because that's not just wishful thinking, it's an anchor for your new mindset. Every time you make a choice, you can ask yourself, does this move me closer to that vision? Jim often said, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines, practiced every day. That's true in money, and it's true in mindset. If you find yourself slipping back into old thinking, feeling hopeless, or like you'll never get out, pause and remember, this is a process. Give yourself some grace. Real financial change is rarely quick. But every shift in your thinking, every new belief, is like a seed. You plant it now, and you'll see the results in time. Here's a little exercise you can try today. When you feel overwhelmed by debt or frustrated by your finances, take a breath. Ask yourself, what's one thing I can do differently today? Even if it's just deciding to learn something new about money, or to say no to one small impulse purchase, that's a step in the right direction. If you catch yourself repeating old limiting beliefs, gently challenge them. Replace I can't with I'm learning how. Replace I'll never get out of debt with I'm on a journey of progress, not perfection. One practice Jim suggested was to feed your mind every day. Read a positive book. Listen to an inspiring podcast. Write down something you're grateful for, even if it's small. The more you strengthen your mindset, the more resilient you become, no matter what life throws at you. Sometimes, the biggest shift you can make is simply believing that change is possible. That you are not your debt. That you are not your mistakes. You are a person with the ability to learn, to grow, and to choose a new path. Jim's philosophy wasn't about pretending everything is perfect. It was about being honest with yourself, taking responsibility, and believing in your power to change. He used to quote Earl Shoaff, his own mentor, who said, "Don't join an easy crowd. Go where the expectations are high, and the pressure to perform is to achieve and to grow." So, as you start to work on your finances, remember, this is your journey. It's okay if it's messy. It's okay if you have doubts. Just keep coming back to the idea that you can become the kind of person who is financially free, step by step. When those old fears pop up, maybe the shame of past mistakes, or the anxiety of bills piling up, try to see them as signals, not stop signs. Signals that it's time to adjust your mindset, to remind yourself of your vision, and to take another small step. Jim would always say, motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. And habit starts with mindset. If your mind is full of fear and doubt, it's almost impossible to take action. But if you fill your mind with possibility and hope, you find the energy to take the next step. Let's take a moment to reflect. What belief about money would you like to let go of? What new belief would you like to adopt? Maybe you want to release the idea that you're bad with money and replace it with, I am capable of learning and growing. Write it down. Put it somewhere you'll see it every day. Let that be your mantra as you move forward. Remember, progress doesn't happen just because you want it to. It happens because you decide, again and again, to think differently and to act differently. Jim's core philosophy was always about starting with yourself, because when you change, everything else can change too. You're not alone in this. Every person who's broken free from debt or created real financial stability started with a single decision to shift their mindset. So wherever you are right now, know that this is the beginning of your own transformation. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to believe that you can move forward, one step, one thought, at a time. And as we move into the next part of this journey, keep coming back to Jim Rohn's powerful truth: for things to change, you have to change. You've already taken a powerful first step by opening your mind to new possibilities, by considering that your future can look different from your past. In the next section, we'll go deeper into how to spot and break the habits and beliefs that keep you stuck. But for now, Just hold on to this. Change is possible, and it starts inside you. Let's pause for a moment and talk honestly about the roadblocks that trip so many of us up, often before we even realize it's happening. Because, here's the truth, getting out of debt isn't just about the math. It's about the stories we tell ourselves, the beliefs we hold, and the habits we repeat day after day, often without even thinking. You might be wondering, why do I keep finding myself back in the same place, even when I really want things to be different? Let's dig into that together. Think about your relationship with money. Not just the numbers in your account, but the feelings that bubble up every time you open a bill, swipe your card, or think about your finances. Is there a knot in your stomach? A sense of dread, or maybe even guilt? If you're nodding along, you're not alone. For so many of us, money is tangled up with emotions from our past, things we picked up as kids, stories we inherited without ever realizing it. Sometimes it sounds like, I'll never get ahead. Or, people like me just don't make enough to save. Or maybe, I'm just not good with money. Sound familiar? These are called limiting beliefs. They're sneaky, because they don't always announce themselves out loud. They show up as quiet whispers, little nudges that shape your decisions, usually without you even noticing. But here's something you may not have heard before: beliefs are not destiny. They're habits of thought. And just like any habit, they can be changed. But before we talk about how to change them, let's shine a light on what some of these limiting beliefs actually look like in everyday life. Maybe you avoid opening your bank statements because you're afraid of what you'll find. Or you put off budgeting, telling yourself it's too complicated. Maybe you use shopping as a way to feel better after a stressful day, only to end up feeling worse when the bill comes. Or you might find yourself saying, it's just a coffee, or it's only a few dollars here and there, but those little choices add up, quietly draining your bank account over time. It's easy to feel like these patterns are just part of who you are. But that's an illusion. Let's zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Our financial habits, good or bad, almost always have roots in the way we think. Maybe you grew up in a household where money was always tight, and now you find it hard to believe abundance is even possible. Or maybe you watched your parents argue about bills, and now every financial decision feels stressful or fraught with anxiety. Even if your family never talked about money at all, that silence can leave you feeling uncertain, unprepared. It's not your fault. And it's not set in stone. Jim Rohn often said, you cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. That starts with awareness. So, let's take a gentle, honest look at some of the patterns that might be keeping you stuck. Ask yourself, when you think about money, what's the first emotion you feel? Is it hope? Is it fear? Is it resentment? Take a breath and really notice. Sometimes, just naming what you feel is the first, most powerful step. Now, think about your habits. Are there certain times when you're more likely to spend impulsively? Do you find yourself reaching for your phone to shop online late at night? Do you spend more when you're celebrating or when you're feeling down? Start to pay attention to what triggers those choices. It's not about blaming yourself. It's about becoming curious. When you start to see your habits clearly, without judgment, you open the door to change. let's be real, breaking the cycle isn't about willpower alone. Habits are like grooves in our brain. We repeat them so often that they become automatic. But habits can be rewired. And that rewiring starts with awareness. Here's a simple exercise you can try. For the next week, keep a small notebook or use a note app on your phone. Every time you make a financial decision, big or small, jot down what you bought, how you felt before and after, and what was happening around you. No need to judge or explain. Just observe. Over a few days, you might start to notice patterns. Maybe you always splurge after a tough meeting at work. Or maybe you avoid looking at your balance until payday, then feel relief, only to watch the balance drop again. By shining a light on these patterns, you're already loosening the grip they have on you. Awareness is the seed of change. But let's talk about some of the most common traps people fall into, and how you can start to challenge them. One trap is the all or nothing mindset. It's the idea that if you can't pay off all your debt right now, why bother? Or, if you slip up once and overspend, you throw the whole plan out the window. Sound familiar? This kind of thinking keeps you stuck in a cycle of frustration and disappointment. But progress isn't about perfection. It's about small, steady steps. Every positive choice matters, even if it's just saying no to one unnecessary purchase today. Another common trap is comparing yourself to others. Social media doesn't help here. It's so easy to see someone's new car or vacation photos and wonder, how are they affording that while I'm struggling? But often, those highlight reels don't show the real story. You don't know what's happening behind the scenes. Comparison steals your attention from what you can control, your own habits, your own journey. Shift your focus back to you. Your story is unique, and your journey will look different than anyone else's, and that's okay. There's also the trap of future me will handle it. It's tempting to push big decisions off, assuming that somehow, things will just work out later. But the truth is, the habits you build today are the building blocks of your future. If you always defer to someday, someday never arrives. So, next time you notice yourself procrastinating on a difficult financial task, like reviewing your spending or setting a budget, pause. Ask yourself, what's one small thing I can do right now? Maybe it's just logging in to check your balance. Maybe it's writing down your biggest sources of stress. Whatever it is, action breaks the spell of avoidance. Now, let's talk about another big piece, emotional spending. This one is so common, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. We all have moments when a purchase feels like a quick way to lift our mood or distract ourselves. But over time, these choices can turn into patterns that quietly drain our resources. The next time you find yourself tempted to buy something you don't really need, pause for just a moment. Ask, what am I feeling right now? Are you bored? Stressed? Lonely? Sometimes, just naming the feeling gives you enough space to make a different decision. You might still choose to spend, but now it's a mindful choice, not an automatic habit. Remember, awareness isn't about controlling every urge. It's about giving yourself options. It's about moving from autopilot to intentional living. Let's step back for a second and recognize, changing habits is hard. you've probably tried before. You might even feel discouraged, like the cycle will never end. But here's the thing. Every time you notice a pattern, every time you pause and reflect, you're making progress, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. And remember, you're not supposed to do this alone. Reach out to someone you trust. Share what you're struggling with. Sometimes, just speaking your fears out loud takes away their power. There's a saying, the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they are too heavy to be broken. But you're not powerless. You can start to loosen those chains, one link at a time. Another key piece is forgiving yourself for past mistakes. Maybe you feel guilty for racking up debt, or ashamed of decisions you made when you didn't know better. If that's true for you, I want you to hear this. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time. Forgive yourself for being human. Release the weight of judgment. When you show yourself compassion, it becomes easier to try again, to keep going, to believe that change is possible. Let's talk solutions. Once you've identified a limiting belief or habit, how do you begin to challenge it? Start by questioning its truth. If you catch yourself thinking, "I'm just bad with money," pause. Ask, is that really true? Or is it something I've repeated so often, it just feels true? Look for evidence to the contrary. Have you ever saved up for something important? Have you ever paid off a bill, even if it was hard? Let yourself acknowledge those wins, no matter how small. Every success is a crack in the old belief. Then, replace the limiting thought with a new, empowering one. Instead of "I'm terrible with money," try "I'm learning to manage my money better every day." This isn't just positive thinking, it's retraining your brain to expect growth. The more you practice, the stronger that new belief becomes. You can also change your environment to support new habits. If online shopping is a trigger, delete the apps from your phone. If you tend to overspend at the grocery store, make a list before you go. Small changes, repeated over time, lead to big results. It's also powerful to set simple, clear financial boundaries for yourself. Give your dollars a job before they arrive. When you get paid, decide ahead of time how you'll use that money, what goes to bills, what goes to savings, and what, if anything, is left for spending. When you have a plan, you're less likely to slip back into old patterns. And when you slip up, and you will, because you're human, offer yourself kindness and patience. A single mistake doesn't erase your progress. Remember, progress is a path, not a straight line. Finally, surround yourself with reminders of why you're making these changes. Maybe it's a photo of your family, a sticky note with a favorite quote, or a vision board with your goals. Let those reminders pull you forward on tough days. Your mind is powerful. When you start to shift your beliefs, your habits, and your environment, you begin to break the cycle. Debt is not your identity. It's just a chapter in your story. And with each small, conscious step, you're turning the page. Next, we'll move from mindset to method. Because once you begin to see and challenge your old patterns, you're ready for practical steps, simple, actionable strategies to create real change. Are you ready? Let's keep going. So, how do we actually break free? Let's get practical for a minute. Because Jim Rohn wasn't just about ideas, he was about action. And what I love about his approach is that it's not overwhelming. It's not about suddenly being perfect or having all the answers. It's about making simple changes, step by step, with intention and honesty. I want to walk you through the core of the Jim Rohn System for financial freedom. These are the steps you can actually do, right now, no matter where you're starting. If you're listening to this thinking, but my situation is different, I'm too deep in, I promise, these steps are for you too. Even tiny shifts matter. Let's start with the first one, budgeting. Now, I know. Budgeting might sound boring, or even intimidating. But let's reframe it. Think of it as taking control, seeing clearly, maybe for the first time, what's coming in and what's going out. Jim used to say, what gets measured, gets managed. So the first thing, really, is awareness. Grab a pen and paper, or open a spreadsheet, and write down every source of income you have. Even if it's irregular, or only a few dollars here and there. Then list out every place your money goes: rent, groceries, bills, subscriptions, coffee runs. Be honest. Nothing is too small to include. This isn't about judging yourself. It's about seeing the truth, because you can't change what you can't see. Once everything's on paper, take a breath and look for patterns. Where is your money flowing out faster than you realized? Is it little expenses that add up, or a couple of big ones? Seeing it all laid out gives you power. You can improve a situation you're hiding from. Now, Jim Rohn was big on the idea of giving every dollar a job. So, once you see where your money's going, start setting a spending limit for each category. Not to deprive yourself, but to create boundaries that serve you. And here's where the magic starts. When you know your limits, decisions get easier. You're choosing, not just reacting. The next key step is prioritizing debt repayment. This is where people often get stuck, because debt can feel like this huge, tangled mess. But Jim taught that progress is made bit by bit. So, pick one debt to focus on. It could be the smallest balance, so you can get a quick win, or the highest interest one, so you stop the bleeding. Make the minimum payments on all your debts, but put any extra cash onto your focus debt. Every time you pay something off, even if it's just a tiny balance, celebrate it. That feeling of achievement snowballs. You're building momentum. You're proving to yourself that you can keep promises to you. And this isn't about shame for having debt. It's about getting back in the driver's seat. Now, one trick Jim often talked about is tracking your progress visually. He'd say, don't just think about it, see it. So, make a chart, stick it on your fridge or your wall. Color in a little more each time you pay down a debt. Watch that line go up, or that debt amount go down. Seeing progress, even if it's slow, is motivating in a way that just thinking about it isn't. Let's talk about another crucial piece, building new income streams. This is something people sometimes overlook, because we get so focused on cutting back, we forget to ask, how can I bring in more? Jim used to remind people that there's always something you can do to increase your income, even if it feels small at first. Maybe it's a side gig, a freelance project, selling things you don't use. Maybe it's asking for overtime, or finally updating your resume and looking for that better job. It could even be as simple as teaching something you know, or offering help in your community. Don't underestimate the power of a few extra dollars a week. When you commit to using all your new income to pay down debt, you accelerate your freedom. It's not about working yourself to exhaustion, it's about being creative and proactive. Sometimes, growing your income is about building new skills. Jim Rohn was famous for saying, "Your income seldom exceeds your personal development." So, invest in yourself. Read books, watch tutorials, take a class, even if it's free online. The more you grow, the more opportunities show up. Back to budgeting for a moment, remember, this isn't a one-time exercise. Revisit your spending plan every month. Adjust as life changes. Forgive yourself if you slip up. The point is to keep showing up, keep fine-tuning. And if you feel discouraged, remind yourself that every financial turnaround story starts with a decision. Not a big, dramatic one, just a quiet decision to try again. To pay attention. Let's not forget the role of accountability. Jim believed in the power of associations, who you spend time with, and who you share your goals with. If you have a friend, a partner, a family member you trust, tell them about your debt freedom plan. Ask them to check in with you, or celebrate your wins together. You're not meant to do this alone. On the topic of tracking, here's another powerful technique. Write down your goals, in your own words. Not just pay off debt, but I am becoming a person who manages money wisely. Or, I am moving toward financial freedom, one step at a time. Review these often. Jim was a big believer in affirmations and clear written intentions. It's less about magic, and more about reminding yourself what you're working for, especially on tough days. Another step, automate what you can. Set up automatic payments for bills and debt if you're able. Schedule transfers into savings, even if it's a small amount. The fewer decisions you have to make in the heat of the moment, the more likely you'll stay on track. Also, and this is important, plan for a little fun. Jim would say, life is too short to live miserable just to become debt-free. If you can, build a small amount into your budget for things that bring you joy. A coffee with a friend, a movie night, a treat now and then. Deprivation leads to rebellion. Balance keeps you steady. Let's pause here and reflect. If you're living paycheck to paycheck, or feeling behind, you're absolutely not alone. Most of us weren't taught these habits growing up. But you can learn them now. The steps are simple, but not always easy. That's why you have to be gentle with yourself, and persistent. If you slip, don't start over, just pick up where you left off. Jim used to say, failure is not a single, cataclysmic event. It's a few errors in judgment, repeated every day. But the flip side is also true. Success is just a few simple disciplines, practiced every day. Tiny choices, repeated, add up to a new life. If you're married or have a partner, bring them into this process. Sit down together, talk about your dreams, your worries, your goals. This isn't about blaming or shaming, it's about becoming a team. Two people working together are more powerful than you can imagine. If you have kids, involve them in age-appropriate ways. Teach them about saving, giving, spending wisely. Let them see you facing reality and making changes. It'll do more for them than any money you could ever give. And if you're single, guess what? You're fully capable. You can do this for yourself. Let's recap the steps, just to make them clear. First, make a budget, know exactly what you earn and where it goes. Second, choose one debt to attack first, while making minimums on the rest. Third, track your progress visually, celebrate every win. Fourth, get creative about bringing in new income, no matter how small. Fifth, keep reviewing and adjusting as you go, because life isn't static. And woven through all of it, be kind to yourself. Your worth isn't defined by your debt or your bank account. You are worthy of freedom. Jim also believed in the law of sowing and reaping. Whatever you plant, you harvest, eventually. So, every good financial habit you plant now will show up later as peace, options, and freedom in your life. If you need support, look for resources, financial coaches, books, podcasts, online communities. You don't have to reinvent the wheel, and you don't have to do it perfectly. If you're tempted to compare your journey to someone else's, remember, everyone's path is unique. Your progress might be slow, or it might surprise you. What matters is that you start, and you keep going. Give yourself permission to celebrate the small wins. Pay off a bill. Celebrate. Stick to your budget for a week. Celebrate. Turn down an impulse purchase. That's a huge win. You're learning to trust yourself again. To keep promises to yourself. That's how change really sticks. Because freedom isn't just about the numbers. It's about who you become along the way. Here's something else Jim Rohn would want you to remember. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons. A little bit of daily discipline, writing down your expenses, planning your meals, making that extra payment, adds up over time. So, as you start this process, focus on progress, not perfection. Aim for just a little bit better each month. One less impulse buy. One more dollar saved. One more debt shrinking. If doubt creeps in, remind yourself, millions of people have been where you are and found their way out. You can, too. And if you ever feel like quitting, go back to your why. Are you doing this for peace of mind? For your family? For freedom? Write it down. Look at it often. Let it pull you forward on the hard days. You're building new habits, and that takes time. But it also gets easier. The discipline you practice today turns into momentum down the road. If you want, use apps or tools to help you track your spending and goals. Some people love spreadsheets. Some just use a notebook. Find what works for you. And give yourself grace for your mistakes. No one does this perfectly. Jim Rohn himself started out broke and learned the hard way. Your setbacks don't define you, they teach you. So, as you move forward, remember these steps aren't just chores. They're acts of self-respect. You're showing up for yourself. You're taking your life back, one choice at a time. That's the Jim Rohn System in a nutshell. Clarity, discipline, creativity, tracking progress, and above all, believing that you can change, because you can. The journey to debt freedom isn't quick, and it isn't always smooth. But it is possible. And every day you take a step, you're getting closer. So, keep going. Even if you stumble, even if it feels slow, just don't stop. The freedom you're working toward is worth it. Let's keep walking this path together. Your next step starts now. Now, let's talk about something that might sound simple, but is actually the real heart of your transformation: rebuilding your relationship with money. You know, many of us think of money as just numbers, or something outside of ourselves. But money is personal. It's woven into how we see ourselves, how we feel about our future, even how we show up for our families. So, if you want to create lasting change, it's not just about cutting up a credit card or following a strict budget. It's about changing your mindset, your habits, and the environment you're building around yourself. Let's start with your habits, because that's where real, daily change lives. Think about the last time you made a money decision, big or small. Was it out of habit? Was it an impulse? Or maybe, was it a little bit automatic, something you didn't really question? We humans are creatures of habit. And so much of what we do with our money is actually running on autopilot. That's not a bad thing, unless those habits are leading us somewhere we don't want to go. Here's where the magic begins: becoming aware of your money habits. Ask yourself, when do I spend without thinking? What triggers me to make a purchase I later regret? Are there patterns I notice, maybe always eating out on Fridays, or hitting add to cart when I'm stressed? When you start noticing these things, it's not about beating yourself up. It's about shining a light so you can see what's really going on. Because you can't change what you can't see. So, for a week or two, try this: keep a little money journal. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just jot down when you spend, what you spent on, and, if you can, how you felt at that moment. You'll be amazed what you discover. Maybe you feel bored, so you shop. Or you're tired, so you order takeout. This is your first step to developing healthy money habits, bringing your actions into the light, without judgment. Now, once you're aware of your patterns, you get to choose. That's empowering, isn't it? Let's say you realize you tend to buy things for a quick dopamine hit when you're feeling down. Instead of shaming yourself, ask, what could I do instead that would make me feel good, without costing money? Maybe it's calling a friend, going for a walk, listening to music. Little replacements like these can add up, over time, to big changes. And remember, healthy money habits aren't about deprivation. They're about aligning your actions with what really matters to you. One of Jim Rohn's favorite ideas was this: discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. So, let's talk about your goals. Not just any goals, empowering ones. Most people's financial goals sound like this: I want to get out of debt. Or, I want to save more money. That's a start, but let's dig deeper. Why do you want those things? What would freedom from debt mean for your life? What would more savings actually allow you to do? Maybe it's having more time with your kids. Maybe it's the freedom to travel, to help your parents, to sleep better at night. When your goals are connected to what truly matters to you, they stop being chores and start becoming fuel. So, take a few minutes, maybe after this episode is over, and write down your why. Why do you want a new relationship with money? What will it give you, emotionally, physically, spiritually? Once you have that, turn your why into a vision. Picture your life a year from now. Imagine you've taken care of your debt, you have money in savings, and you make confident, joyful decisions with your cash. What does that life feel like? Who are you spending time with? How do you feel about yourself? Hold that picture in your mind. Let it motivate you on the tough days. Now, let's bring it back to earth. A vision is beautiful, but we need practical steps. Break your goals into small, manageable chunks. Maybe your big goal is paying off $10,000 in debt. That can feel overwhelming. But what if you focused on $200 at a time? What if you celebrated every extra payment? Every time you resisted an impulse buy, you stopped for a second to acknowledge your progress? That's how you build momentum. And here's another secret: gratitude. It might sound strange to talk about gratitude while chipping away at debt, but it's powerful. Every time you make a positive choice, no matter how small, thank yourself. Every time you put $10 in savings, or choose to eat at home, notice it. Feel good about it. Gratitude changes our brain chemistry. It shifts us from feeling deprived to feeling empowered. And that is the foundation for lasting change. Now, let's talk about environment. Because, let's be honest, change is hard when you're surrounded by triggers. If your social media feed is full of ads and influencer spending sprees, it's going to be tough to resist temptation. So, what can you do? Start by curating your environment. Maybe you unfollow accounts that make you feel like you're missing out. Maybe you set up your phone so it's harder to shop on impulse. Surround yourself, digitally and physically, with people and messages that support your goals. Find podcasts, books, and online communities where people are talking about healthy finances. Spend time with friends who support your journey, or who want to join you. If you can, talk to your family about your goals. Let them support you, or at least understand where you're coming from. Jim Rohn used to say, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." Who are your 5? Are they moving you toward your goals, or away? You don't have to cut anyone out of your life, but you can be mindful about who you let influence your thinking. The truth is, we all have ups and downs. There will be days when you feel like giving up, when an unexpected expense knocks you off course, or when old habits resurface. That's why reflection and self-awareness are your secret weapons. Set aside time each week, even just 10 minutes, to check in with yourself. Ask, how did I do this week? Where did I succeed, even in small ways? Where did I slip up, and what can I learn from that? Remember, mess-ups are not failures. They're feedback. If you overspend one week, it's not a reason to throw your plan out the window. It's a chance to ask, what happened? Was I tired, stressed, unprepared? What could I do differently next time? Maybe you notice that you always get off track on Fridays, after a long week. Knowing that, you can plan ahead, maybe have meals ready, or schedule something fun and free. This is how you use self-awareness, not to criticize, but to gently guide yourself back on course. It's also important to celebrate your wins. Every time you make progress, no matter how small, give yourself a pat on the back. Share it with a friend, or even just write it down. Progress is motivating. And when you feel good about your actions, you're more likely to keep going. Let's talk about a few practical ways to support your new money habits. First, automate what you can. Set up automatic transfers to savings, or automatic minimum payments on your debt. The more you can take willpower out of the equation, the better. Second, track your progress visually. Some people use spreadsheets, some use apps, and some just draw a chart on a piece of paper. Whatever works for you, find a way to make your progress visible. Maybe you color in a square every time you pay off $100. Maybe you put a sticker on your calendar when you have a no-spend day. Visual progress is powerful. It reminds you that you're moving forward, even when it feels slow. Third, reward yourself in healthy ways. When you hit a milestone, do something fun that doesn't sabotage your goals. Maybe it's a special meal at home, a movie night, or a walk in your favorite park. You deserve to celebrate every step. Another key is to keep learning. Money management is a skill, just like anything else. The more you learn, the more confident you'll feel. Listen to podcasts like this one. Read books. Ask questions. Take classes if they're available. The important part is to stay curious and open. And remember, your relationship with money is always evolving. You're not aiming for perfection, you're building resilience, flexibility, and a sense of growth. If you stumble, that's not the end. It's just another chapter. One thing I've seen again and again, people who succeed with money don't have perfect self-control or some magic discipline gene. What they do have is a willingness to reflect, adjust, and keep going. They know that every step, even a small one, is worth celebrating. So, as you rebuild your relationship with money, focus on these three things: healthy habits, empowering goals, and a supportive environment. Let yourself be human. Be gentle with your mistakes and curious about your patterns. Remember your why, that vision of freedom, security, and joy. And surround yourself with people, messages, and systems that help you stay on track. You're doing something important here. You're not just changing numbers on a spreadsheet, you're changing your life. And the best part? You don't have to do it alone. There are millions of people on this journey, learning, growing, sometimes stumbling, but moving forward all the same. So, take a deep breath. Acknowledge how far you've come, even if you're just getting started. Every conscious choice you make is a vote for your future self. Keep reflecting, keep learning, and don't be afraid to ask for help if you need it. Your relationship with money will keep evolving, just like you. And the more you nurture it, the more it will support you in every area of your life. You've made it this far, and that's something to be proud of. If you're still listening, it means you're ready, really ready, to do something different. To try a new way, inspired by some of the most powerful teachings I know. And let's be honest, taking the first step is often the hardest. It's easy to listen to advice, to read another book, or watch a video, and then let life pull you back into the usual routine. But today, even just by showing up here, you've made a choice, one that your future self will thank you for. So I want you to take just a moment and acknowledge that. Let yourself feel a little bit proud, even if things aren't perfect yet. Especially if things aren't perfect yet. Because that's where every journey starts, right where you are, with all the mess and the stress and the hope for something better. If you remember only one thing from today, let it be this: you are not stuck. You are not broken. Your situation isn't permanent, and you are not alone in facing it. Millions of people have felt buried by debt, weighed down by worry, unsure where to turn next. But you're here, making the choice to look this challenge in the eye. And that changes everything. Jim Rohn used to say, for things to change, you have to change. It's simple, but not always easy. It starts on the inside, the way you think about yourself, your money, and what's actually possible for you. You might be surprised, even after all the practical steps we've covered, how much your journey still comes back to mindset. That voice in your head, the one that says you can't, or you're too far behind, or that nothing will work, just remember, it's not the truth. It's just an old script. And you get to write a new one. So as you move forward, I want you to keep asking yourself, what if things really could be different? What if you could wake up a year from now feeling less stressed, more hopeful, maybe even excited about your financial future? Imagine that feeling, even if it's not here yet. Picture what it would be like to check your bank account and feel peace, not panic. To pay your bills and know that you have enough. To watch your debt shrink, little by little, because you made a plan and stuck to it, even when it was hard. That kind of freedom doesn't happen overnight. But it does happen, step by step, day by day, with choices that start small but add up in powerful ways. Maybe today that choice is as simple as opening up your bank statement. Or writing down what you owe, instead of hiding from it. Maybe it's sitting down with your partner, or a friend you trust, and saying, I want things to be different. Maybe it's just deciding not to give up, even if you messed up last week or last month or yesterday. That's still progress. That's still courage. I want you to remember that every person who's ever broken free from debt, every story of financial transformation you've ever heard, started one small step at a time. Not by knowing everything. Not by having all the answers. But by admitting where they were and daring to believe they could go somewhere better. You don't have to have it all figured out today. You just need to take the next right step. And if you stumble, or when you stumble, just promise yourself you'll get back up. Because setbacks aren't failures. They're feedback. They're reminders that growth is messy, and learning anything new takes practice. You wouldn't expect to run a marathon without training. You wouldn't expect to play an instrument perfectly the first time you picked it up. So why would you expect to be perfect with money, when nobody ever really teaches us how? Give yourself that grace. You're learning. And you're growing. And every effort you make, no matter how small, matters. You're building new habits, one choice at a time. You're rewriting old stories that said, this is just the way it is. You're making room for hope, for pride, and for the kind of freedom that comes when you're finally in the driver's seat. And you're not alone. That's the other thing I really want you to remember. There's this idea that money issues have to be private, something we handle all on our own, in secret. But that's just another lie that keeps us stuck. The truth is, you don't have to walk this journey by yourself. Whether it's a friend, a family member, a support group, or just this podcast, you have a community here. A place where you can feel understood, encouraged, and supported. So as you go forward, lean on that. Reach out if you need help. Ask questions. Share your wins, no matter how small. If you pay off your first bill, tell someone. If you make it through the month with a little left over, celebrate it. If you say no to an impulse purchase and put that money toward your debt instead, give yourself a high five, even if it feels silly. These moments are how momentum is built. They're proof that change is happening, one step at a time. It's so easy to get caught up in the big picture, to feel overwhelmed by the mountain ahead of you. But mountains are climbed one step at a time. And sometimes, the most important thing you can do is just keep going. Even if you're moving slowly. Even if you can't see the top yet. Even if it feels like nothing is changing. Because trust me, if you keep showing up, if you keep making those small, consistent choices, things will change. You'll wake up one day and realize you're not where you used to be. You'll look back and see that every bit of effort, every bit of patience, every time you started over, it all added up. And you'll feel proud of the person you've become, resilient, resourceful, and free. So as we wrap up today, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for trusting me with your time and your attention. Thank you for believing, even if it's just a little bit, that your story isn't finished yet. Thank you for showing up for yourself. That's no small thing. I hope you'll keep coming back. This podcast was created for people just like you, people who want more, who are willing to grow, who are ready to rewrite their money story. No matter how hard it's been before. No matter how many times you've tried. No matter where you're starting from. Together, we're building a space where change is possible. Where hope is real. Where you can find practical steps, encouragement, and maybe even a little inspiration for the road ahead. So if you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe. That way, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll always have a place to come back to when you need a boost, or just a reminder that you're not alone. We'll keep diving into the tools and mindsets that make lasting change possible. We'll answer your questions. We'll share stories and strategies. Most importantly, we'll keep reminding each other that freedom from debt isn't a destination, it's a journey. It's a process. And you are already on your way. So take a deep breath. Give yourself some credit for taking this step. And remember, no matter how overwhelming debt might feel today, it does not define you. Your past does not dictate your future. You have the power to make new decisions, to build new habits, to create a new story, one small action at a time. So let's keep moving forward, together. I'm grateful to be a part of your journey. And I can't wait to see where you go from here. Until next time, keep believing in what's possible. And keep taking those steps, however small, toward your own freedom. You've got this. And I'll be right here, cheering you on every step of the way.